Salam Sediq, Sediqqi Saab. Last time we spoke to you was about 5 months back. You've graduated now, done an MA in National Security Studies from Washington. That time when we spoke to you, it was, I think, the fourth round of talks that were taking place between Ambassador Zalmay Khalilzad and the Taliban in Doha. Now it's the ninth round, probably the fourth or fifth day already. So much has changed, but we still have a lot of uncertainty.
Yes, absolutely. So it seems that there are lots of discussions going on in Doha, but for us as a government, as a nation, we want to see an outcome that is acceptable to the Afghan people, an outcome that can end this senseless war waged by the Taliban against the Afghan people, on the Afghan people. So let's see, we are tracking what is going on right now in Doha. There might be a progress in a couple of days to come. And we will see, hopefully, that there's finally another phase of these discussions that would lead to Afghan-Taliban talks.
So that is what everyone is expecting, some kind of agreement between the U.S. government and the Taliban in Doha, and subsequently maybe even put in that agreement some kind of if not a timeline, at least assurance that the Afghans would be talking to the Taliban as well at some date in the future, near future.
So yeah, that is the important phase of all these negotiations, and eventually that will bring peace because the Afghan government, the Afghan people is the main principle and will be the main principle in these talks. So we actually we're looking into this process as a two-phase process. One was the U.S. Taliban. Well, progress is made, of course, but yet to see the outcome. But the next phase, which is the most important phase, and the proper negotiation with the Afghan government as a main principle, will be the key towards a sustainable peace in Afghanistan.
Mr. Sediqqi, so has the ARG, has President Ghani, has the government, it doesn't feel left out at this stage?
How can the main player or the main principle could be left out? So the president has been working with the US for a long time. After his last meeting with President Trump in 2017, so he suggested that we include the peace scope into the South Asian strategy. So he was the one who proclaimed a ceasefire between the Taliban and the Afghan government. So we strongly believe that the peace initiative is owned by the Afghan government and by the Afghan people. So the notion of saying that the Afghan government is left out could not make any sense at this stage.
You were talking about President Trump and President Ghani meeting now. Is it a lot of confusion also regarding President Trump's statements? Now, when he meets Imran Khan, he tells Imran Khan publicly that if he wanted, he could end the war in Afghanistan in 10 days by obliterating the whole of Afghanistan. A couple of days back, he says the US is not a policeman, does not require to be in Afghanistan. But now he says there is no timeline. He's going back to what he had initially started saying, that was a conditions-based withdrawal.
I think most of his statements come from those arguments and concerns that the Americans have for the situation in Afghanistan. We have lots of friends in the United States, or lots of military and politicians that have served in Afghanistan for the security of not only Afghanistan, but also for the security of the United States. But there's also consistency in what he says in regards to the US mission in Afghanistan. That is like a condition-based. There's no clear timeline in which the US forces will completely withdraw from Afghanistan. I think he's being briefed by his military leaders, by congressmen and women, and he gets a sense of importance of this mission as well. So, but this is again the Afghan government, the Afghan president, who suggested any future changes in the US forces and the way they function in Afghanistan, especially the reduction in the forces, cutting the cost of the U.S. forces in Afghanistan. This was all the proposals of Mr. Ghani as a president that he shared with the U.S. president.
He also, President Ghani has also talked recently in an interview to Tolo News about the fact that Afghanistan can handle, even if they say 5,000 troops leave within a certain time frame. But when you say the Ghani government is not being left out of these talks, you are being briefed only post what happens. And the US is your bilateral strategic partner. Shouldn't Afghanistan be involved more?
I would say that the briefing also happens before each round of the discussions happened between Mr. Khalilzad and the Taliban, like the 8th round, the 9th round. So Mr. Khalilzad was here in Kabul before he started to perceive the last round. No, there is a consistent briefing. Of course, we get most of the information, of course, and also the Afghan government provide its observation of any progress being made during these phases or rounds. So let's say to what extent those observations have been considered by Mr. Khalilzad during his talks. And we will also find out when he comes to Kabul before signing any deal or any agreement with the Taliban to tell us what is the progress, what is the scope of progress, and what happened to those concerns that we shared in terms of a very proper peace plan that the Afghan government actually is looking forward to it.
When you're talking about the signing of some kind of agreement between the US and the Taliban, are you expecting the envoy himself to do it, or maybe even Secretary Pompeo or Donald Trump, the president, to be involved in that?
I don't know at this stage. I cannot really comment, but I'm sure that this will be at a stage where the envoy can do that, because they are dealing with a group. They are not dealing with a legitimate, representatives. It's a group, and that's what we have always asked, to deal with them as a group. And they should not be given disproportionate legitimacy to what they have done, what they are doing, and what is their commitment for the Afghan peace.
When you talk about the next stage, which we do believe could possibly take place in Oslo, whether the intra-Afghan dialogue or talks, we do believe 15 names have been identified. We've heard off the record of some of them, but President Ghani this time is saying he doesn't want to make it public because he doesn't want the same situation that happened in Doha last time when there were 250 people named and there was a lot of controversy surrounding that.
Absolutely. So we do have reasons for not announcing these names. As soon as you announce names, so there are many players that they would come up to you and say, you know what, we want to be included. So we don't want to have this chaos in terms of preparing our negotiating team. So the team is ready. We strongly believe that they will represent Afghanistan. They will be strong. They are strong people and men and women, and we don't have any doubt in their abilities. We would like to avoid what happened like last time. We went to the politicians, to groups, and they gave us a big list of people. So that's not going to happen this time. We need to be concise. We need to be effective. And we, as a government, would make sure that the country, the republic, is presented in a manner that people want when they go and talk to the Taliban directly.
When you say talk to the Taliban directly, when he spoke to you last time when you were in Washington, you expressed a lot of concern about whether the Taliban could be trusted. You said something like when
I do have
a group
the same,
that has killed thousands of people and has so much blood on their hands.
Yes.
You still stand by that? The government still stands by that?
Absolutely. So we still have concerns towards their commitment. It is sad to say that they have been behind all those miseries and what we have right now as a war. It is true that it is hard to believe them, but we will have to enter into negotiation. We have to see what they want. As the president says, our negotiation will have no condition, but our peace will have conditions. So we would present our conditions and we will listen to what they say. We hope that they accept a normal life. We hope that they should realize that by continuing fighting, they will not reach to their goals. They have been fighting for 29 years. So what is that they have in their hands? It is the blood of the people. It is the blame of destruction of Afghanistan. And look at them; they are living in other countries like Pakistan, Qatar, and what is the achievement? What they do? So, and also there is an absolute a negative view of the Taliban among people, unless they do not stop fighting, unless they do not stop killing the civilians that they have done in the past.
So that is a crucial aspect of the whole of Afghanistan, unitedly across regions, across ethnicities, across professions, across ages wants that peace. Maybe a reduction of violence initially and then a comprehensive ceasefire.
Yeah.
But we're seeing the Taliban attacking every day viciously.
Yes.
Now Daesh as well, Islamic State, even while talks are going on.
Yes. Look at their statement yesterday. They warned a telecom company that they will attack. They warned people using that SIM card. They have warned to kill those who are going to participate in the elections. So you see all these vicious acts of the Taliban and their claims of those attacks that they perpetrate. So they are still the same. We hope they change. We hope that there is proper mechanisms in which we can hold them responsible, even if they enter into any deals. But we will be very careful as a government. The government of Afghanistan, the president, is going to deal with the peace process with maximum care. He will regard everybody's interest, the Afghanistan and Republic and everything. So we are not going to accept any peace that will not assure the prosperity of our people and would not assure our republic. So our red lines are very clear when we go and enter into a dialogue and negotiation with the Taliban.
One thing is very clear, that the reason for the continuous decades of violence is because the root cause has not been addressed. That is Pakistan sanctuaries there, financing there of terror groups, including the Taliban and possibly even Daesh. So if that doesn't change, how do you achieve what you're saying are the red lines, that it's peace and prosperity in Afghanistan?
Absolutely. We would like to see the Taliban gives that clearance to the United States, to the Afghan people, that what is that relationship that they have with Pakistan? What is going to happen to their relationship with narcotics? So there are thousands of questions that should be addressed to address the root causes. We strongly believe as a nation that until and unless Pakistan does not do anything, Pakistan does not stop support to the Taliban, we will not eventually see peace, meaningful peace in Afghanistan. You know, the Taliban still enjoy massively in Pakistan. They have their councils, leadership councils. They have their madrasas, thousands of madrasas, and many more. So we very much hope that all these issues would be strongly considered when they are talking to the U.S. or when they enter into talks with the Afghan government.
Sediqqi, is the Taliban unified? We saw what happened. You're talking about the Quetta Shura, and we saw what happened in the mosque where Akhundzada's relatives, including a brother, was killed. There seem to be factions as well. There's also the view that even if Taliban shows an independence from Pakistan and enters some kind of power sharing agreement with the rest of Afghan polity, there'll be other groups like Daesh which will continuously attack Afghan people.
Yes, so there's a network of these groups. Even the Taliban among themselves, you will see many different groups of the Taliban networks across the country, and also many other regional or international terrorist groups. So, and the platform for all those groups is provided by the Taliban. So the Taliban has provided that umbrella, that protection, and that environment of functioning within Afghanistan. So we would have to see what happens to that. You know, there are a lot of talks about, assurances. So for us as an Afghan, it seems very difficult to understand what kind of assurance are you seeking from a group that protects other groups. You know, most of the Daesh members were ex-Taliban. And they are, you know, that the Haqqani network is the right wing, the operational wing of the Taliban network. And ETIM, the East Turkestan, IMU, look at these. These are very brutal regional terrorist groups that they all function under the leadership of the Taliban. So where are those assurances? How can a Taliban as a group can provide assurance to the United States that they will cut their links, the links that were there for a long time, the survivor links between these groups. Just let me tell you one more thing. You know, the number two, Al-Zawahiri, the number two, Al-Qaeda, has pledged allegiance to the Taliban.
Yes.
And
Yes.
in the Sharia, according to their Sharia, if somebody announces allegiance or pledges allegiance, they cannot undo it. So where are the assurances that the Taliban will not really connect with Al-Qaeda, as the Al-Qaeda number two is currently, you know, accepting Taliban leadership as their Amir al-Mu'mineen. So there's a lot of these issues that makes it very complicated for us to deal with. It is not only about dealing between the US and the Taliban, it is us as a nation, it is our republic, and it is the will of our people that we will be resolved to go and talk to them.
You were talking about Ayman al-Zawahiri giving allegiance to, pledging allegiance to the Taliban. Suhail Shaheen, the spokesperson of the political office of the Taliban in Doha, also gave an interview to CBS denying that Al-Qaeda was involved in 9/11, and even talking about the two American troops who had been killed, saying it was very positive. So he went on to say that it was out of context. But if I can just come to India now, India has so much love across Afghanistan, across the spectrum. We've helped so much in development and continuing to do so. In this road, in this path that Afghanistan is choosing, where would the government of Afghanistan want India to be, and how would you want us to help in the peace process during and post an agreement?
Well, India is our all-weather friend. We are proud of the friendship. It goes centuries. And of course, the role of the India as a regional power, economic power, is very important for our country. We hope that India plays an important political role in what is going to happen in terms of shaping the security conundrum of this region. We look up into the Indian role, a very strong role. We hope that India, as a regional power, can talk to the US and to many other countries in the region to make sure that the peace process in Afghanistan is a meaningful peace process. That whatever we do collectively will assure all of us or ensure our people that there will be security. You know, we are bearing the largest burden of terrorism in Afghanistan. We've paid an immense sacrifices. We are losing lots of people, but all the sacrifices is not only for the security of this country, it is for the security of region, India, and many other regional countries, and also for the security of the United States. So we want India to acknowledge our sacrifices in this front and make sure that the Afghan government has the strongest support when we go and talk into, and we enter to the phase of the negotiation. So we want all these kind of supports from India. We expect the support from India, and we believe that India can play an important role, especially when the United States has said in their strategy, the South Asian strategy, that they are seeking Indian support into Afghanistan. They are looking up into India. So that's our wish, that's our desire. And the support of India has been so sincere in the past so many years and decades and centuries, and we want that role. And we want to make sure that our ties grow, trade ties, you know, bilateral ties, and especially security for us is the key towards the stability of this region.
It's a very important point that you're making, that not only does India have a lot of deep love in Afghanistan, it has relations internationally with the US, with China, with Iran, Russia, the Central Asian republics, as well, where it can internationally play a role.
Yes.
Internally, do you think India should be involved in any manner to, say, unite various political factions so that Afghanistan can stand united when it talks to the Taliban?
I think we are united, there's no doubt. And we strongly believe that, that the Afghan government can present the Afghan people. Yes, we do have politicians, we do have political parties, we respect them a lot, but we sometimes think that they are not really, they're not able to really agree or work in a platform that can echo what the government is doing. So the president involved many of them in the peace process. Then we saw that there was disconnection. We saw that our peace process, God forbid, took an ethnic road or political road. So then we stopped. Then we said, no, let the government decide. But we do consult with all the political parties. But I think, no, internationally and the region, we want that role of the Indian people. We want them to stand behind us firmly when we take up our matters to the international community, when we talk about the regional security and we talk about the regional prosperity. So we want India to stand behind us. But internally, we will deal with it. I'm sure that convergence will come, and I'm sure that our politicians will realize that the peace process that we take and whatever we do will maintain their interests as well.
When you're talking about processes, there is a parallel electoral process also on rallies being conducted by various presidential candidates, including President Ghani himself, Amrullah Saleh, that terrible attack on his life. Luckily, nothing except for, of course, there were deaths. But
Yes.
Can those two parallel processes go hand in hand? Because the EU is supporting you. I
Yes.
heard also about, for the first time, there's a voter list that is out.
Yes.
Money being put in by the EU. America has already put in money. But do you think these elections will take place? Because many people I talk to say it's probably not going to happen.
It has to happen. Unfortunately, our election has got many enemies, but it matters for the people because the president has this constitutional responsibility towards election. And we will have to go to the election so that the people have that opportunity to elect their future government. We cannot cut this process that began in 2001. We don't want to go back before 2001, whereas there was no elections and groups were able to enforce themselves upon the people. So that has to finish. We will have election for sure. Election has a timeline. Election has there's a process already. But the peace process has to go on as well. The president says, let's have a new government with a strong mandate and a strong desire, and they will take on the negotiation, whoever comes as the president in Afghanistan.
Well, that's precisely what the Taliban won't want. A legitimately elected government that has a mandate to, the reason is?
There's a reason, because the Taliban are afraid of the will of the people. So we are quite sure if they come, even they will not win in Helmand province if they candidate themselves as a provincial council. So that's why the Taliban are trying to create problems for the elections. And there are many others who are also somehow aligned with them not to have election and then have a temporary setup so that everybody's included. They want that kind of power sharing or want to be part of it, which is against our constitution. And there is no public support for that. Everybody is against that. We don't want to repeat what was done in our history. We don't want to see people talk about our politics and state formulation in Pakistan, in Qatar, or any other places. We don't want that. We don't want those formulas that were given to us before 2001 in Rawalpindi or I don't know, wherever. So that era is gone. People are very smart now. People are now aware of those consequences, and that's why everybody wants election. You know, when we had the consultative peace jargon in Afghanistan, 3,000 people came. The first question and the first demand they posed was, you know, do the election and the peace together. So that's very clear. The mandate is there, and nobody can stand against it. And we will go ahead with our election, and that is the value of our republic. We don't want setbacks. There's no setbacks at all, and that setbacks cannot be compromised.
You were talking about the red lines that the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan has. Will another red line be, say, an Iranian model of governance where there is a supreme council or a leader, a spiritual leader who is above an elected leader?
No, no. We have constitution, and the state formulation in our constitution is quite clear. Unless the future governments, you know, gather a loya jirga and bring changes in the constitution. So for that, we are quite clear. Any future government will decide based on the will of the people to you know, bring changes in the constitution, but not now.
Sediq, I think apt way to end this discussion would be the Dar-ul-Aman Palace, which was reinaugurated on your Independence 100th Independence Day, and I've seen it so many times in complete ruins. That's a symbol of what Afghanistan can really be, right?
That is the symbol of our glorious history, of our strong past history that now emerged back. And that symbol shows our resilience towards destruction. We hope the Taliban realizes that how resolved we are. You know, that palace was renovated in 18 months, and that's how the Afghan works now towards building the future. I think that's a very strong and iconic symbol, and that gives that momentum to the people, and that reminds people that how bad history we had and why that huge building, historic building, unfortunately, you know, destroyed. But that carries this very strong symbol. The president inaugurated that, and we had a massive celebration across the country in our 100 years, and we are so happy and proud to be a nation of 100 years.
Sediqqi Saab, thank you so much for speaking to SNI again, and inshallah we'll see you in Kabul soon.
Such a pleasure to have you again here. Yeah, hopefully we want to host you.